Pupil referral units, or PRUs, are places for children who've been excluded from mainstream education. Langdon Hills in Basildon is considered a good one by Ofsted, but many of the children here are troubled.
What doesn't kill you makes you wish you were dead.
Yep, she has some dark moments.
Yeah. Do you sometimes see clues to what's going on in their lives?
Yes.
The art teacher says kids here need empathy.
When they say they're scared, I'm scared about going home, or can they leave 10 minutes early because, you know, some adults might say, oh, well, that's just them trying to get out of school. It might be, but it might actually be that there really is someone waiting out there with a baseball bat.
Some children clearly need the expertise offered here, but England's PRU population has increased by 10% in 2 years to nearly 17,000, and the Children's Commissioner is worried that for many it's a route into gangs.
We know that in some PRUs, the percentage of children who are in gangs is high. Sometimes it's 50%. Someone told me the other day that if they counted the children who also run the drugs, then it's as high as 80%. It's easier for gangs to be able to access vulnerable children if they're all in one place. So, in my view, they need to remain, as far as possible, within the mainstream school.
Earlier this year, this map mysteriously appeared all over the Northern Line, illustrating how children in pupil referral units are 4 times more likely to end up in prison. This activist put them up.
There's a path that anybody can take. Schools will be like, you're not operating well here, but you have to be excluded. And then from there, it's that self-fulfilling prophecy that they're not good enough, and then it just leads them down the wrong road.
Sky News has found that across the country, hundreds of children are unofficially moving down this route. That some schools are effectively under-reporting the level of exclusions by doing what's called off-rolling.
Off-rolling is where a child is unofficially excluded and taken off the school's register. And there's a spike in the number of these cases in Year 10, the year before children sit GCSEs, meaning their results won't count towards the school. And that's led to accusations that the schools are in part therefore motivated to do this to improve their own results.
Look at this. It's the Department of Education exclusion map. It suggests red areas, places like Lancashire and Bedford, have the biggest problems with exclusions, but it is misleading. For example, in just 10 of the local authorities marked here in white, there were 750 unofficial exclusions, where children were off-rolled and taking their GCSEs in pupil referral units without being officially excluded.
Children have many more rights if they're actually permanently excluded. Ofsted tracks them if they're permanently excluded. They have to be offered a place within a certain number of days if they're permanently excluded. If they're informally excluded, that isn't the case. And what we see is a spike of informal exclusions, or off-rolling as often talked about, in Year 10 and 11, often when children are reaching the GCSEs.
Here are 2 examples of what can happen. When Kieran was unofficially excluded, he disappeared from the education system altogether.
My friends that got permanently excluded, they told me they had this board meeting at a round table and things like that. None of that happened. I was just told not to come back into school and I need to go to this place. But I didn't end up going there because of the area that it was in and some conflict that I was in at the time. So I didn't go to that PRU. So I kind of just stayed on the street, hung out with people, was exposed to a lot of things, a lot of bad things.
Nehemiah went to a PRU, but he believes the children in them are increasingly at risk.
I'm still very in touch with one of my t-shirt assistants who works at the PRU, and he just tells me it's getting worse. Every year it's getting worse. He's had 2 deaths, 2 students die over the period of last summer, which is shocking.
Killed?
Killed, yeah.
Local authorities we've approached say PRUs act as safe havens for students with complex medical and emotional needs. Some areas identify students who would most benefit from the programme offered by a PRU, and sometimes it's part of a managed move from one mainstream school to another. But others say schools are often offloading children due to a lack of resources.
I think there's some anecdotal evidence emerging that in some parts of the country where schools, secondary schools in particular, feel they're not being adequately supported, that they are sometimes finding mechanisms where they can take the children off roll. Parents are being asked if they will agree to home education as opposed to permanent exclusion. That is sweeping the problem under the carpet.
You have to be so empathetic. Without that empathy, that young person will just be like, yeah, just give up on me like everyone else. And that's what leads to exclusion. That's what leads to youth violence. That's what leads to young people doing the wrong things or confiding or spending time with the wrong people, because that wrong person give them the time or day.
The Department of Education told us exclusions should only ever be used as a last resort. The government has recently launched an external review looking at how exclusions are used. Jason Farrell, Sky News.